An update on that proposed fuel strike: the Office of the Prime Minister fires back at the opposition, and business is booming for fish vendors ahead of the Easter holiday weekend. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Thursday, April 14th. With the holiday weekend practically here, many Bahamians were concerned about the possibility of a fuel strike causing a disruption on their holiday plans. Well, our Tyler Simonet spoke with members of the Bahamas Petroleum Dealers Association who say that Bahamians can now rest easy. Here she is with that report.
Motorists in the country, particularly here in the capital, can now breathe a collective sigh of relief as there will be no strike by fuel providers following a successful meeting between Prime Minister Philip Davis and the Bahamas Petroleum Dealers Association on Wednesday. Vice President of the association, Fiscal tells our news team as much.
No, there will be no suspension of services at any gas station on the island of New Providence or throughout the Bahamas at any given time. There will be absolutely no suspension of services. We will not be suspending any type of service. People can go on with their normal lives this weekend and for the foreseeable future as we sit down with government and discuss in detail the yeses and nos of this industry. But I don't foresee any disruption of services at all at this time. At no time. Not at this time. At no time. I make that commitment to the Bahamian people, and I know the office of the Prime Minister will make exactly the same.
Yesterday, Prime Minister Philip Davis tweeted that he had an opportunity to meet with the BPDA to discuss some of the challenges impacting their industry and provided every assurance that the government would work with the industry to provide relief. Now, as for the contents of the meeting, Mr. Bastian explains that he could not go into great depth at this time, but he assures the meeting went very well.
And I can't get into the details, the fine prints of the meeting, but I am very, very optimistic. After having a conversation with the Prime Minister and his technical team on the way forward for the industry and for the general public as a whole, I think the hope and optimism that was given to us by the Prime Minister will only make the industry as a whole a better industry, and I think it would bring happiness to the motoring public and to everybody. I think the way forward, based on the discussion we have, will be an uphill one for all and sundry, but I think I must say beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was a pleasure sitting down with the nation's leader.
Now, while Mr. Bastian could not provide specifics of that meeting, during the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing, Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Simon Wilson, spoke briefly on what was discussed.
Retailers have a concessionary business license rate, but the base is inflated when prices are high. So prices are high not because of their own making, but it gives the impression that their revenues are high. But their true revenue is really tied to the 54 cents they get. So there were some discussions around that. There were some discussions around what type of support the wholesalers can provide in this environment. So these are all the issues that were discussed there. There was no decision made in terms of what is the best option.
Some 90% of the association members wanted to vote to strike, which Mr. Bastian says he was never in favor of. Also in attendance at the meeting was Minister of Economic Affairs, Senator Michael Halkitis, and Minister of Works and Utilities, Alfred Sears. The main bone of contention is due to the rising price of crude oil because of the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine. Fuel providers in the Bahamas were finding it increasingly harder to buy fuel. Secretary Wilson notes that they do plan to meet again with the BPDA after the holiday weekend to discuss how to move forward. Reporting for JCN News, I'm Tyler Simonet.
Thanks, Tyler. Off the heels of a local daily reporting that the Free National Movement chairman, Dr. Dwayne Sands, accused Prime Minister Philip Davis of prioritizing political expediency over the sustainability of the National Insurance Fund and the best interests of the Bahamian public, Press Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Clint Watson, passionately expressed that the government is committed to addressing the National Insurance Board Fund without further burdening the Bahamian people right now.
The chairman of the Free National Movement, Dr. Dwayne Sands, in an article today, described the Prime Minister as pandering on NIB. Let me make this very clear. The Prime Minister is not pandering. What he is a Prime Minister that leads with compassion and understands the needs of the Bahamian people. He's quite assertive and sure as to what he's doing with the National Insurance Board and the plan and the recommendations to increase the contributions. The Prime Minister said emphatically, it won't happen now. On the back of the Bahamians, it cannot happen. Now, we understand that perhaps for the previous administration, it would have been something they would have made a decision to do. And if they, matter of fact, no, they wouldn't have, because they had the same issue facing them, and the previous minister did nothing about it.
Now, Financial Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Simeon Wilson, also speaking on the possibility of rates increasing at the National Insurance Board. He says that more economic data is needed with respect to any considerations in regard to NIB.
For me, the key thing is we need to get more economic data. So we have not done an unemployment survey since 2019. All right. So we all believe that the economy is getting stronger. All right, but we need data. So from as an economist, I will say yes, but if you give me the data, I'll make a determination. We're operating really with the absence of economic data on the labor force. That's very, very.
Prime Minister Philip Davis has gone on record to say this increase would not happen until relief is brought to the Bahamian people. As it stands, NIB contributions are at 9.8%. Of that, 5.9% is paid by the employers and 3.9% is paid by the employee. It's been 8 months since the Davis administration has been in office, and the country's deficit, which sat at over $1 billion, is shrinking. And that's according to the Ministry of Finance's second monthly fiscal report for 2022. Overall monthly revenues have increased by 40.8% over the prior year, 2021. The ministry, in releasing its second monthly fiscal report on government's operation for the month of February, as mandated by the Public Finance Management Act 2021. The ministry, in releasing its second monthly fiscal report on government's operation for the month of February, as mandated by the Public Finance Management Act 2021, noting that during the second month of this year, revenues declined by 16.2% or $38.2 million compared to January 2022, which was $197.4 million, in line with seasonal trends. Finance Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Simon Wilson, noting that monthly revenue performance has increased some 40.8% or $57.2 million compared to 2021.
Conversely, expenditure contracted by 4.4%, $10.7 million to $230.5 million during the month of February in comparison to January, and this was an increase of 10.1% over February 2021. The big driver of the increase of expenditure was paying prior year bills as we try to catch up with the rest.
According to the Financial Secretary, as a result of activities, a deficit of $33.1 million was realized for February, approximately 52% or $35.8 million lower than the same period of the prior year, adding that even though expenditure has increased, the deficit continues to shrink.
For the 8 months ending February 2022, the deficit is estimated to be at $326.5 million, which is 38% of the budget. It's a 62.2% or $537 million reduction from the deficit of $863.7 million experienced for the prior year period. Net debt widened by $181.3 million, and our net debt increase for the first 8 months of the year was $428 million, 428.8 or $429 million, which is when compared to the prior period last year of $1.29 billion. It's a dramatic reduction.
The ministry invites and encourages the public to visit the national budget website, www.bahamasbudget.gov.bs, to view the various statistical reports available to the public. And in addition to its devastating impact on the health of many individuals, the coronavirus' negative impact on the economy has been devastating for many. And while some countries are still battling high levels of the virus, here in the Bahamas, we seem to have found a balance, learning to live with the coronavirus. And as we hear in this next report by Jcn Saunders, although the government still has concerns, it is of the opinion that we must do all we can to stay safe while keeping the economy open.
As we approach the busy and long Easter holiday weekend that usually marks the beginning of beach season here in the Bahamas, and with the government announcing that churches can now operate at 100% capacity, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Michael Dovell was asked if there are any concerns or safety recommendations for the general public, as some countries around the world are still battling new COVID strains that have the potential to reach the Bahamas.
The EOC met and they felt it appropriate to allow churches to meet at 100% with the necessary healthcare protocols. And I believe that this particular Holy Week and this particular season, I believe that the churches have always acted responsible, and I believe they will continue to do so. With that being said, the Bahamian people must know that it is a responsibility of ours to be able to practice the right protocols, and the Ministry of Health is looking very closely at what's happening around the world. We're looking at the new variants, and we will make the necessary decisions when the time comes.
Dr. Dovell was attending a neurotrauma workshop for Caribbean nurses at Holy Trinity Activity Center on Tuesday. He reminded Bahamians and residents that COVID is still here, and although many restrictions have been lifted, the public is still encouraged to practice safety protocols. Dr. Dovell says if we are a disciplined society, we can see more of the economy open, especially those businesses like nightclubs that operate after hours.
COVID has not gone away. It's in the country, and the responsibility of every Bahamian in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is to practice the appropriate protocols. Once those protocols are practiced and implemented, we will definitely see that we're able to keep our cases down and be in a position to open other sectors of the economy so that people can get back to work and we're able to sustain ourselves as a country.
There were 22 new cases of COVID reported by the Ministry of Health between Saturday, April 9th and Tuesday, April 12th, with 106 active cases as of Tuesday. Dr. Dovell says the government is closely monitoring.
Well, we're watching all of the cases. Some are travel related. We're a tourism country, and we have to open our borders in order for people to come to spend and to get those tourism dollars. Our responsibility at the Ministry of Health and Wellness is to be able to manage COVID in the country and to be able to do it effectively. We are concerned anytime that there's an increase in numbers, but what we realize that the increase in numbers of some days are directly related to reporting being delayed for that day and the accumulation of 2 to 3 days. And so we are working diligently with our labs to ensure that the cases are reported daily so we can have a direct number that correlates with the specific date on our dashboard.
Dr. Dovell continues to encourage those Bahamians who have not done so already to volunteer to take the COVID vaccine because the benefits to you as an individual and to the healthcare system are many. Jcn Saunders, Jcn News.
Thanks, Jcn. You're watching Jcn News. Stay with us.